Alright, shalom, shalom, first and foremost. Behold all your praise, honor, and glory to you, Yahweh, Hashem, Hashem, Krakodas. Give honors to the elders, and honors to the apostles, preaching and teaching us the word of truth. And with sincerity as always. And without any further ado, just want to get into this lesson here, into some history of Esau. Yeah, some history on Esau, and when you go into this, basically, just shows you how corrupt this system is. Basically, yeah. When it goes to when that the term Banana Republic, basically, I think it was. Gotta pull a map up here. Basically, we're gonna be speaking on the United Fruit Company. Which is now goes by the name of Chiquita. So they're known as Chiquita. And I think that's where you get the name, really get the name UFC from. I wouldn't be surprised if so UFC. What does UFC stand for? UFC stands for Ultimate Fighting Championship. But I really think that's where they get the name from, is from the United Fruit Company, which today is called Chiquita. Yeah, because originally it was called the Project War of the Worlds. Before the UFC was called Ultimate Fighting Championship. So con man. Yeah, but the term when you go into their plantations, they had this is a map of where where they was growing their bananas. You see, it's mainly in the southern Americas. That's what it's called? It's called here on the map, Central America. So yeah. Oh, it says here. The United Fruit Company was able to acquire 42% of the total land in Guatemala, leading to a huge influence of this land. Only 50% was actually being utilized. So when you go, as I'm gonna get into in this lesson, the United Fruit Company once again. I think this is an American business. Yes, the United Fruit Company was an American business founded in 1899 through a merger of the U.S. banana trading and importing concerns. The company was created in 1899 by combining the Boston Fruit Company with the Tropical Railway and banana trading enterprises of Minor C. Keith. Let's look hit that guy up. Yeah, this was an Edomite right here. Looks like an Edomite. And but just because he's white doesn't mean he's an Edomite. But just based off how much money he was making and how around this time basically jigs weren't really going on to anything. We were in the curses. By this point in time in history, we were in the we were cursed. So just off that, this more than likely was had to have been an Edomite here. Now he could be a speckled bird, especially when you look at this photo as when he was younger. It looks more like he definitely looks like an Edomite. This photo, he kind of looks more like a Jake Butt. Just your spirit, bro. I would guess. I'm guessing he was an Edomite. That's what I'm leaning towards on that side of on that one. So yeah. Yeah, so this guy was an Edomite. Uh, yeah. The United Fruit Company operates today as Chiquita Brands, headquartered in Switzerland. All right, so today there's headquartered in Switzerland, but was originally when it was called United Fruit Company. It was originally headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts, and then in 1933 they moved to New Orleans, Louisiana. Today they're headquartered in Switzerland with regional agricultural operations managed in Florida. So yeah, man, we're gonna just get into this today. Basically, yeah, man, they ended up they started in Guatemala, if I'm not mistaken, and then when you go into the history of this corporation, basically that was owned by Edomite and had Edomites investors and other CEOs and managers and whatnot, mostly comprised of all Edomites that was making money off of Guatemala and other Central and Latin American countries, Southern American countries, basically. And then they expanded to Mexico and even down to Colombia. And now they're basically in the Philippines now. They've got key to brands now. They've expanded to the Philippines and Asia, across the world, and Africa, parts of Africa now. This brand here, this company here, that's ran by Edomites, owned by Edomites. That guy named Minor Cooper Keefe, who made the who basically owned railroad roads, and it says it was an American businessman whose railroad, commercial, agriculture, and cargo liner enterprises had a major impact on the national economies of the Central American countries. Yeah, so this guy basically ended up making, once again, the United Fruit Company. Um, I'm gonna Google this first. I'm gonna look up who's the owner of this place spot now. This is now Chiquita. So I put who's the owner of Chiquita. It says Chiquita is proudly owned by a joint venture between two Brazilian conglomerates, the agribusiness and juice company Colt Rail Group and the financial and investment firm Safra Group. The two firms acquired the banana producer together in 2014. Formerly known as United Brands and the United Fruit Company. Acquired for roughly 1.3 billion in a takeover battle against Irish rival Fife Fizz. Yeah, so they're not saying who's the specific people though behind it. Because as you can see here, here's a photo of it. And so that's him today. Probably a small hat. It's a heathen. That's an Edomite here. It's all Edomites. Now this dude looks like this other guy here looks like a Northern Kingdom, but I would bet you that he's more than likely not an Israelite now, because the Israelites are cursed today, and we're gonna be at the bottom today, basically. So yeah, man. But basically, two key events. I'm gonna get the scripture actually. Deuteronomy 28, and two key events that happened. We'll get those in a minute. Deuteronomy 28 on down to. It's just because this fit these curses, man. This story here, it fits right along line with the curses that befell on the nation of Israel here, man. The nation of Israel here, man. Once again, it said we brought out that statistic how they had like 60% of the land, and they were just making bananas there, and then bringing them back to sell them. My God, and then bringing them back to sell them. So this is Deuteronomy 28 and 16. You will be cursed in the city and cursed in the country. Your basket and your kneading trough will be cursed. The fruit of your womb will be cursed in the crops of your land, and in the calves of your herds, and the lambs of your flocks. You will be cursed when you come in, and cursed when you go out. No, there's one curse in particular. I'm trying to find it. Uh, this is 38. You will sow much seed in the field, but you will not harvest. But you will harvest little, because locusts will devour it. You will plant vineyards and cultivate them, but you will not drink the wine or gather the grapes, because worms will eat them. You will have olive trees throughout your country, but you will not use the oil, because the olives will drop off. 42. Swarms of locusts will take over all your trees and the crops of your land. And in this case, the locust was Esau and the United Fruit Company against Zebulon and Asher, some of Issachar, but mainly it was Zebulon and even Issachar though too, with the oil stand. When you go into the David Rockefeller Standard Oil Company, all that oil, he also basically what's the word I'm looking for? I'm gonna find the word here. Exploited. Yeah, I think the word is exploited. Yeah, basically do this here. The word is exploited. Yeah, exploited. The Issachar for his oil in Mexico, down there in Mexico, and they exploited it. Zebulon here, Guatemala. Mm. The Guatemalans today, they exploited them for yeah. for their money, to make money off them, profit off of them. Yeah. Anyway, it says 44. They will lend to you, but you will not lend to them. They will be the head, but you will be the tail. $51. They will devour the young of your livestock and the crops of your land until you are destroyed. They will leave you no grain, new wine, or olive oil, nor any calves of your herds or lambs of your flocks until you are ruined. And that's what happened with Zebulon here. And this, if you go into the story here, that's what happened with them. They basically it's like they got besieged, as it says down in 52. They will lay siege to all your cities throughout your land until your high fortified walls in which you trust fall down. They will besiege all the cities throughout the land the Lord your power is giving you. And this is what happened basically, essentially. They even ended up, yeah, the United Fruit Company ended up getting help as well from. They got help from Theodore Roosevelt. It was president at the time, and just Google it here for you. And the Theodore Roosevelt helped the United Fruit Company. It says here, Theodore Roosevelt provided immense indirect and direct assistance to the United Fruit Company through his big stick foreign policy and the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. He justified U.S. military interventions in Latin America to protect the secure U.S. commercial interests. His administration established a framework that allowed the company to dominate the economies of Central American countries. Yeah, a relationship historically referenced when discussing the term Banana Republic. In practice, this meant U.S. troops were frequently dispatched to stabilize governments and environments that were favorable to U.S. corporate operations. Yeah, basically, I'll get into it here, but basically, this happened just right after Guatemala was telling them that they didn't want them there, and they wanted the banana operations, plantations back to them. So anyway, it says here, and I got this from this video that was entitled "How the U.S. Stole Central America" by this guy's channel named Johnny Harris. Which, as the dude said there, the story is a prime example of how big corporations can get too big that they begin to act as governments, dictators. Yes. So it says right here, an American sailor, Lorenzo Doe Baker. Okay, hold on. Let's see, yeah, they started with Guatemala, basically. I brought that out. Soon they were the largest company in Guatemala. They owned all of the railways and a fifth of all farming land in the country, and the radio stations and infrastructure. So basically, Esau ended up owning the radio stations and all the railways, farming land, infrastructure. Structure. So slowly but surely, Esau was getting more and more of all of this. It says, and by 1901, the government of Guatemala hired the United Fruit Company to manage the country's postal service. This is when United Fruit started to look a lot like a government, so they kept expanding operations across Central America, specifically south of Mexico to Venezuela. Their next step was to pay the workers next to nothing, and not with real money. They paid them with brochures they can use to pay for stuff in their stores, that which were designated United Fruit Company commissaries. Were taking all right. They were making real money here. So now the United Fruit Company had its own currency. They had a private navy, which was 93 boats, called the Great White Fleets, even used during World War II. They had their hands on everything in Central America: the land, the crops, the people, the infrastructure, and soon enough, government agencies. Soon these countries were too dominated by and relied on the United Fruit Company. They were no longer run by the people or the government. They were run by American banana companies who had all the power and leverage in the world. This led to the nickname Banana Republic, which really, when you go into the definition, they I brought out a definition earlier. That this one ain't. They really didn't do it justice here. Yeah, here they say so the derogatory term for a politically unstable country with an economy dependent upon the export of a single limited resource. Yeah, that's where you get this term here, Banana Republic, which that's what basically the you tribes were, us Israelites were, Con. Yeah, a political unstable country whose economy is dependent on exportation of a limited resource, products such as bananas or minerals. That's basically Esau took power in that he took advantage of that, of what we had, basically the blessings that we had, because Jakes really didn't really weren't able to do much around this time period. Esau was the one that had all the opportunities and technology and money to travel here and there with planes and the connections. Esau had the connections to the rich people, the elites, and yeah. And I personally believe this guy here, Minor Cooper Keefe, he was probably funded more than likely by these elites. This is in 1911. Honduras said they were done. These are our plantations, so the United Fruit Company organized a private army to overthrow government to put in a president, which was Manuel Bonilis over Manuel R. Dibila, that would allow them to keep producing. Bananas companies are now overthrowing government. So yeah, this was the point in time when they basically overthrew Zebulon here. This became a common pattern anytime government stepped up to tell them no more. Yeah, this ended up. Uh, Next was Colombia that decided to protest, and then United Fruit Company, called it the UFC, decided to basically took and they were responsible for killing a lot of those protesters there. Yeah. I'll even Google this just curiosity here. Yeah, because basically why didn't Esau see this? Esau knew about this. The president Theodore Roosevelt knew about this, and they didn't do anything about it. They didn't help you tribes at all. They knew about this, and they didn't do anything about it. Basically, man. Hmm. Yeah, they have something called the. Yeah, here you go right here. And although USCO sometimes promoted the development of the nations where it operated, its long-term effects on the economy and infrastructure were often devastating. In Central America, the company built extensive railroads and ports, provided employment in transportation, and created numerous schools for the people who lived and worked on company land. On the other hand, it allowed vast tracts of land under its ownership to remain uncultivated, and in Guatemala and elsewhere, it discouraged the government from building highways, which would have lessened the profitable transportation monopoly of the railroads. Under its control, UFCCO also destroyed at least one of those railroads upon leaving its area of operation. That's right there, man. It just shows you the selfishness. They destroy the railroad. Groups such as, however you say that, Maya experienced displacement and land loss as plantations expanded during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Laws passed in these times allowed private owners and foreign companies to acquire land that had previously been held communally by indigenous communities. In 1954, this was the guy right here, Jacobo. Was it him? It says Colonel Jacobo Arbenz elected in 1950. This was the Guatemalan government. was toppled by forces led by Colonel Carlos Castillo Armas, who invaded from Honduras. Commissioned by the Eisenhower administration, this military operation was armed, trained, and organized by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. The directors of the USCO United Fruit Company had lobbied to convince the Truman and Eisenhower administration that colonial Arbenz intended to align Guatemala with the Eastern Bloc. Besides the disputed issue, Arbenz. All right, this was when basically this was later on in Guatemala. Oh my God! All right, never mind. This was the guy right here though, who was the president, Miguel Ardabila. He was the president of Guatemala. I mean, the president of Honduras. Yeah, I got those confused. So now I'm gonna Google it the right way here. The United Fruit Company overthrew Miguel Ardabila. Yeah, that other guy Arbenez here, and that was later on in 1954. Was toppled by this guy, puppet president here, Carlos Castillo. This was a puppet president, a charlatan, basically that went ahead and joined this so-called national liberation movement that was set up by and this was propaganda by the United Fruit Company and the U.S. too, because they trained this militia group and basically did said lies about Arbanez to basically end up taking him down. Basically called the in this thing called the Guatemalan Revolution. Yeah, so this was more later on. I'll probably get into that later. And then you have another account in Colombia, which was called the Banana Massacre. Oh, actually, this happened before that. Arbanez. This was after they took down the president of Guatemala, Miguel, and not around 1907. Then the Banana Massacre happened, which basically they killed these jakes because they basically wanted to get paid real money because they weren't getting paid real money and working 7 days and wanted to work just 6 days. So that's also why they ended up getting killed. And then their president got killed, and then they set up a fake president. And the U.S. knew about this, and they funded the United Fruit Company. That's why they still do exist today. So just showing you, man, Esau ain't no good guy. He ain't no good guy. He ain't hell here to help you, Jakes, man. This is what he did. He exploited your people. He exploited you Israelites. He used you Israelites. He's still using y'all. He's living off your resources, your land, your goods. your stock, your cattle, all that shit, bro. That's why I brought out Deuteronomy 28 here. I already brought that out. How he shall besiege thee in thy gates in thy city. I'm gonna get that again actually. Deuteronomy 28 and 52. They will lay siege to all the cities throughout your land. Yeah, that was in Edomites. The U.S. with the United Fruit Company, with these them elites, and John D. Rockefeller too. Around this time, he was in Mexico, taking all that oil for his company, Standard Oil. Yeah, a lot of that oil he got from Mexico, and he was making all the money off of it. He never gave any of that money to Issachar or any of Jackson. And on top of it, he used the Gadites to basically trick you and take your land, and then he used you Judites to just work his fields for free. So yeah, it says in 52 here, they would lay siege to all thy cities throughout your land. That was basically Mexico, everywhere where Israelites were, anywhere that were any land these Israelites owned. Basically, how he was gonna make basically saying basically Esau was going to take what we have and profit off of it until the high fortified walls in which you trust fall down. Yeah, basically, the Lord ain't look out for us. They will besiege all the cities throughout the land the Lord your power is giving you. Yeah, once again, Esau took everything. So going back to yeah, this guy here. All right, let's go here. The United Fruit Company overthrow Miguel R. Dabila. And it says, yes, the United Fruit Company and rival bananas interests heavily orchestrated and financed a coup that ultimately forced the resignation of Honduran President Miguel P. Dabila in 1911. Dabila's administration angered rival fruit tycoon Samuel Zemurray of the Cuyamel Fruit Company by granting favorable land and rail monopolies to the Bacara brothers and negotiating a debt treaty with the United States that favored the United Fruit Company. The uprising, seeking to protect and expand their own banana interests, Zemurray financed and armed an invasion alongside exiled former Honduran President Manuel Bonilla and U.S. mercenary Ali Christmas. The intervention, backed by Zemurray's mercenaries, Bonilla's forces successfully seized northern ports and advanced toward the capital, leading to U.S. mediation. Under immense political pressure and the threat of U.S. military intervention, Dabila resigned in 1911 and allowed the U.S. to mediate the installation of an interim president. Benelio took power in 1912. So yeah, It's basically when Esau he funded this Jake to fight with the and take down the president. That was the Jake. Yeah, as the guy also said here, the U.S. military had their back, and Teddy Roosevelt made sure that American military and business interests are protected. In Honduras alone, the U.S. invaded 7 times in the early 1900s. Around this time, the U.S. started becoming an empire too. So the United Fruit Company got emboldened. Central America was an interest to the U.S. as well around this time, so it made sense why they designed this coup. But they ain't gonna tell you that basically they funded those jakes to go up against their own to take down the president. But it also just knowing Esau is always throughout history. That's what his blueprint is that. But it also just got worse. In the 1920s, there was a situation in Colombia where a bunch of workers. That's where you go get the banana massacre. So the U.S. goes to the UFC. That's what I'm gonna start calling them now, the UFC. And I think that's where the USC, the wrestling entertainment today, gets that name from. But anyway, they go to the Tamaki Jakes. But anyway, they go to the U.S. instead of going to the Colombian government, basically. So they basically this is what communism is. That's communism right there. That Esau was running off of. When you go into communism, is basically a political and economic ideology that advocates for a classless, stateless society. In this system, all property and major resources such as mines, factories, and farms are publicly owned rather than privately held. Yes, so this was a Marxist idea, and Vladimir Lenin. So basically, where everybody's equal, basically, but really, it's not as good as you think it sounds. Uh, so I'm gonna get a scripture here in Habakkuk 2 and 12. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood and establishes a city by iniquity. 15. Woe to him that giveth his neighbor drink and putteth thy bottle into him and maketh him drunken, also that thou mayest look on their nakedness. That's what Esau did here. That's what this company, United Fruit Company, did, and the U.S. States government did. Thou art filled with shame for glory, drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. And that's what's going to happen to Esau. So going back to this, uh, to invade with their military to stop the strike. Yeah, basically, U.S. threatened Colombia if they didn't stop the strikes. If the Colombian military doesn't do something first, once again, this was not some big revolution as well. This is just a side note. What the Colombians did there, the workers there, basically the slaves there, because they were basically slaves there working for Esau. They weren't. It wasn't some big revolution or rebellion. These were just jakes that wanted to get that worked for the banana plantation that wanted to get more better conditions, basically. Because all they wanted basically was they didn't want that much. All they wanted was basically they wanted to work 6 days a week instead of seven and get paid real money. That's all they asked for. That's why, as the scriptures say, I think it's James 5 and 4. Look, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mow your fields are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. You have lived on earth in luxury and self indulgence. You have fattened yourselves in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the innocent one who was not opposing you. And that's what the scripture. That's what the scripture is about right here. That's what this. That's exactly what happened right there. As the scripture said there, they really didn't do nothing much to Esau. He just wanted to get paid real money and work 6 days a week. Esau said, "No, that's too good for niggas, man." And this basically just shows you that the Latin tribes are went through the same shit you niggas went through, man. It's just you monkeys don't want to be called equals because you feel insecure about yourself. So anyway, man, moving on. So this is what happened here. Listen to this. To invade with their military to stop the strike if the Colombian military doesn't do something first. Oh yeah. So anyway, moving on. Of course, Colombia feels threatened and sent in their own troops to go out. These workers strike down and were ordered to quote spare no ammunition. And this happened on December 5th, 1928, in this town in Colombia. The Colombian army shows up and massacres them. Yeah, so they use their own people to come against them as well. Here's a photo of them. Of these stirring up these jakes that was part of that strike. Leaders of that strike there. Number of people dead. They said their estimates given by contemporaries and historians ranging from 47 to as high as 2,000. According to Congressman Jorge Harvey, say that the killed strikers were thrown into the sea. Other sources claim the bodies were buried in mass graves. So yeah, of course Esau is gonna hide the truth, and it's more than likely up to the 2000s, and more than likely he didn't bury them in mass graves. They drew them out in the sea. That's what I would say. Any of you anyone that says otherwise, you're either just Uncle Tom, or you're just being more fair than I am. But because we can't fall as accused, but yeah, man. I mean, you gotta know your enemy, man. You gotta know your enemy, bro, and you gotta know your history. And man, that's what Esau did, bro. And you niggas want to forgive Esau so much, bro. It's nothing new under the sun as well. And Esau's just coming up with more and worse ways to come down on you, Jake, soon. But I'll stop here because I'll just stop it here and continue this later. Um, Maybe read a bit more of this. I'll just finish this little paragraph here. Maybe get one more scripture. But yeah, man, that's the point. These were the three main events right there. The first one was, I mean, the United Fruit Company was owning all his land. They didn't even decide to give it back, or none of that until this day. I bet they still own that parts of those lands. So just showing you too that Issachar, Guatemala, them Latin tribes, Americans, the northern tribes, your Latino brothers, to you Negroes, you niggas, man, they don't own none of that shit over there. They might have a country that's so called their own country, but they don't own none of that infrastructure over there. None of the resources over there. They're still oppressed. Most of the homeless people over there are of the Mexicans. Most of the homeless in Mexico are Mexicans. Most of the homeless in Guatemalans are Guatemalans. You got the rich. Most of the rich people over there are whites. If you were to go over there, Mexico, which I've seen videos, and talk to those that are actually Mexican that live over there, most of those that live in those high-rise, beautiful buildings are white people, bro. You go into the ghettos, it's still ghettos over there. Drugs and all that over there, bro. So that means those Latinos, whitebacks, you niggas don't like so much, they don't own none of the shit, just like you don't own none of your fucking shit over here, bro. That's why they gotta come over here to want to come over here to make something. Why would they have to come over here? Exactly, bro. Anyway, bro, listen to this, bro. And in Guatemala in the 1950s, at this point, a USC owns at least 50% of the land in Guatemala, making profits tax-free. But the president named Jacobo Arbenz, now this is when we get to that guy, who was democratically elected, tried to change things for the Guatemalans to help them from the United Fruit Company, like Robin Hood, like basically he was like trying to be like Robin Hood type of thing. It says, but of course the United Fruit Company didn't like this. Once again, the United Fruit Company goes to the White House and gets help. Once again, Karl Marx, this type of thing. United Fruit hired a PR magician, Sigmund Freud's nephew. This magician worked with news agencies to create a bunch of fake stories that linked President Arbenz to communism with fake news. Yeah, so basically, they put lies on his name, and essentially, that's basically the blueprint for how they also the classic CIA coup, which next would be Iran that they ended up taking down. So yeah, man. Well, I only got a bit more, so I might as well. Actually, I'm gonna continue because I just got a bit more there. Um, yeah, so that was a banana massacre. I just got that. I was James 5. This is Habakkuk 2. I'm gonna go back up though. At verse 5, Habakkuk 2 and 5. Yea, also because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man. It's talking about Esau, Edom, and Amalek. Neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as deaf, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Yep. Because Esau today and the Amalek today, they done went everywhere. They own everywhere. They own the whole globe. They're global superpowers right now. They have all the earth in their hands. Job 9 and 24. So not always take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that laugh himself with thick clay, the thick clay there. Going into debt, spiritual debt, first and foremost. And literal, if you want to say that too, you could say literal death too, but ultimately spiritual death, man, debt that Esau has piled up upon him, his nation, since the Lord put him in power to whip our ass as we disobeyed the Lord. So going back to Deuteronomy 28, what I brought out earlier, that they would take our crops, our fields, our land, our land, everything, right? This one here. He created a fake report and fake Guatemala newspaper in distribution to destroy him. To help United Fruit Company, President Eisenhower sent to the CIA to get Arbenz out of power. The CIA finds some rebels, give them money, and finds rebels, gives them money. Basically, Jake said was gonna be willing to join so they could take down this president here. When you go into it, just gonna try to find his name again here. Jacobo Arbenz, 1950 president of Guatemala. So anyway, I'm gonna keep reading. The CIA finds some rebels, gives them money, and trains them to. They find a leader that will be a better fit, and eventually broadcast more propaganda and turn Guatemalans against their own government. They send the Navy into black Guatemalan waters. They send bombs onto Guatemalan cities, and they then invade Guatemala until Guatemalan army surrenders. Yeah, and Esau knew about this. The U.S. knew about this. They all knew about this. This wasn't just one company, the United Fruit Company, that took a part of this. This was all of Edomites, all Edomites as a nation, man, as a whole. And then around this time, Jacobs was just slaves, so they really couldn't do much around this time. Really, Jake wasn't doing nothing. This was the playbook for the next democracy that would take Iran. Classic CIA coup. Basically, they ended up doing this, using like the same similar strategy against Iran here. And then when you go into it, Iraq, and then whatever that spot Gaddafi was ruling to. During all of this violence, military invasion, and human rights violence, the United Fruit Company was getting really good at their business. They were sending too many bananas to the United States. They created a marketing strategy and hired doctors to write about bananas. Oh yeah, skip down here. Part of the United Fruit Company effort to control the supply chain was stabilizing the genetics of their bananas, making them exactly the same, aka monocultures, which are heaven for a disease. Basically, they made an artificial banana called the. We'll get into it here. Patent of the. Oh yeah. So this new artificial banana called the Cavendish, which these Edomites were paid this guy over there in near Britain, Europe, somewhere in Europe to make this artificial banana, and comes up with it, and so they use that one. Comes to replace the original that was called the Gros Michel and the America, and was the better banana. It is the sweeter, more durable one. That's also the flavor that inspired artificial flavor on the Laffy Taffy banana candy one. So the UFC hoped no one was gonna notice as they looked alike. And it worked. The United Fruit, branded as Chiquita, is still doing shady business like paying agent provocateurs groups militias to keep Colombian people slaves under their foot. Yeah, basically they still, you go further down the line, there's still militias there down there near Argentina now, Chile, that are also oppressing the government to help fight for this CEO business major corporation, Chiquita here, because basically it's a conglomerate. Today's like empires, basically it's just really your government is really just ran by the conglomerate of corporations, basically all oligarchs, oligarchies, basically. Oligarchs are basically the rich people, the richer class, higher class elites that run your government. That's what an oligarchy is. And ultimately, over them is the banking cartels, major banking families, and basically come to find out, now they didn't increase so much in wickedness. You go earlier in this history. At first, it was just about taking their land and oppressing the Guatemalans and making bananas, this fruit, to sell this fruit, which that was already completely wicked. But now they also, basically, they don't even sell you real bananas. It's an artificial banana now. So and in the banana is diseases. They didn't pump these bananas in diseases now. So that's basically how they further offended in the Lord. This brand called United Fruit and Company, now called Chiquita. Basically, now they're burning all the bananas now too. When you go into it, they still got these militias over there in those Latin American countries to keep their profits or whatever other agenda they got now, because they done got made so much money now off that, and of course they're in league with the elites, so they're, and we already know the elites poison the water, they poison the food. Of course, they shook hands with these Chiquita elites, the Chiquita corporations, and made a deal to poison their own bananas, because obviously if they're wicked already, and they're gonna keep on wanting more money, so they're gonna poison the bananas. That's what they're on now. That's what they're on now. Now they done went too far in their wickedness that basically they don't care, and yeah, they poisoning their own bananas to keep them devils fucked up in their ass. Anyways, it says here Chiquita started this time today. Anyway, it says here Colombia peoples keep Colombia people slaves under their foot. And through these diseases, the same one with the original banana, Chiquita started this. Okay, as of December, so basically they brought in the Cavendish because they said the original banana they were using at Gros Michel. They said the Gros Michel was there's really nothing wrong with it. Once again, it was Aesop making propaganda, and then they brought the Cavendish to bring in the artificial banana. But then they did this again back in 2021, early 2020, yeah, late 2021. They said the disease was back that they said back in that time killed the Gros Michel, the original banana they were using. So they brought in the Cavendish. So now they're saying the disease is in the Cavendish now, the artificial banana they made now. They made back then now. With the artificial banana Cavendish. They say it's mutated, gotten stronger, and makes it impossible to grow bananas again. Yeah, so now they're saying basically through this new agenda they got, new corrupted scheme they made, which just shows you that they're part of these elites because that's something that these elites would want to come up with. Basically, they're saying that now this disease done, which is really that they made this disease, artificial disease they made. Now they're saying is in the banana, the Cavendish, the artificial banana, the Cavendish. They say it's mutated, gotten stronger, and makes it impossible to grow bananas again. So now they got to burn the whole plantation, and this is all the way in the Philippines now. At this point now, this was a couple of years ago, which they obviously done gotten more powerful now. That's all happens to them. They get more and more powerful than you niggas and specs, and yeah, just fuck you up even more. So yeah, now they're in the Philippines and basically spreading this so-called disease they're saying is some disease. You niggas believe it, and it's some disease. So yeah, and the Philippines is basically the second largest exporter of bananas. And now they're sent back. When this was filmed, video was made in December of 2021, so this was a couple years ago. And now it's 2026. It's fucking May 15, 4:34 p.m. May 15, 2026. This was made December 2021. The exact time when it was uploaded, I don't know. I like details, a lot of details. This is happening in the Philippines, the second largest exporter of bananas. Okay, and it has spread it in Colombia and Peru, which is next to Ecuador. So at this point, yeah, that's basically a cop out, a bluff, as I like to call it, a buff to say that this disease is everywhere and now you can't get bananas now. That's what ultimately they want to bring. These elites want to bring is rationing out food and bringing in a global man-made artificial famine. So it's just knowing how big Chiquita is and their history on how they conduct business. Fucking over, Jake. Yeah, bro. This is go. I'm not. I forgot the exact word for it. This agenda, but basically where they burn all the fucking farms and poison all the fucking food. So now they making you scared to eat any food. Bringing 3D printing meat, shit like that. Yeah, this sounds like what that is. Chiquita here burning their farms, their banana plantations. They're the largest exporter of bananas, fruit. Yeah, that sounds like they're hand in hand with that. So that's all what that is going back to. Uh, the wicked. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. That's what they're. That sounds like something they would do. They wicked got all the money right now. They got all the the fame, the world, the money, the hoes, the clothes, and the wickedness, man. That's exactly what they're gonna be doing. There's nothing wrong with having that, all that shit, all that fucking money, but they do it all in wickedness. So that's what they do. Look at the back of your dollar bill. That's what they're gonna be doing. That's what they're gonna do. Scriptures say, you can't make straight what the Lord made crooked. So that's what these elites are. They move crooked. They can't rule, basically. As we always say, they can't rule. They ain't made to rule. Socially, economically, all kinds of ways, man. As it says in Revelation 6. We got that one here. Revelation 6 and and I looked and behold a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. And that's what Esau basically does, man. He's this pale horse. When something's pale, it means death, or disease. It looks like disease. It's like color of disease. When someone dies, their skin turns pale. There you go. And his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. Death and hell followed with him. That's Esau for you. Just hell follows wherever he goes. That's where he's going to bring in death and hell. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth. The fourth part of the earth, when you go into that term, that phrase, fourth part of the earth, that's what they used to call America here. To kill with sword and with hunger and with death. And that's what Esau has done. Though he has the weapons to control weather modifications, the DEWs, they call it, direct energy weapons. He has the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases where he can hide and meet in the darkness as in the light, as it says in Job 5. And then he has the fucking what's that shit called? The Centers for Disease Control, where basically they have this facility where they houses all these diseases, because that's really where they make the diseases. Supposedly they get the disease and put it in some container and then put it in a box full of other diseases in little tubes to keep them preserved. And supposedly that's supposed to be so advanced and smart and intellectual that no one could say anything against that. Common sense tells you don't fucking why the fuck would you be doing it? Even wanting to grab a disease to keep it and study it, preserve it, bro. And back in my time, something like that, bro, you would just fucking look at that like you're fucking stupid and retarded, bro. You're the fucking problem. Why if we catch you with those diseases, bro, we would tell you, bro, why you doing with those diseases, bro? Your ass is gonna be killed, bro, and this shit destroyed, bro. But because Esau is ruling, nobody can touch him, bro. That's no one can do nothing about that. Because we had past lives and we used to live in a time where we had more integrity, more courage. So we has control over the weather. Hold your horses. So he has control over the weather, control over wars. He's not gonna start any war at any times. He has control over the weather, control over the wars, weapons. Other weapons he's can do. He has sound weapons that can hurt you and kill someone without touching them. Your phone, it's in itself is a weapon. The 5G and the chemtrails on top of the chemtrails and the 5G and all this electricity around you kills your vibration, your melanin, which helps produce your energy and thoughts and shit like that. Esau has a and look into it, man. Look into it too. Look into it, man. If you just listen to me, look into it, man. You think I'm bullshitting? Look into it, man. I risk my life for this and doing my life for this. And you want to tell me I'm lying, nigga? You are a lie. Yeah, man. Look into it, man. Look into it, man. That's all I got to say for you. Anyway, Revelation 6 and 8. To kill with sword and with hunger and with death and with the beasts of the earth, because Esau can use anything as a weapon. The weather, he can bring a disease, he can bring just explain that, he can make a whole new other weapons to fuck you up. He can make laws and weather modification. You can use the weather as a weapon, the lights, LED lights, your phone, your vibration, your frequency. Yeah, it's already proven that 5G is bad for you and can cause your heart rate to spike. It causes you sleep deprivation. Can ruin your brain cells, all that shit, bro. You use Esau uses entertainment and drugs, all just so on and so forth, man. You can go we can go on. We can go on and explain all the weapons Esau has used as weapons, man. The philosophies, the feminism movements, all these movements, your so-called political figures, leaders, figures, role models, whatever, man. Money. Jakes was still out for money. Yeah, that's what the devil doing. That's why he's called that pale horse. So that because yeah, that pale horse ain't no literal pale. A pale horse, it's basically just Esau, man. Because and the Lord used the pale horse because basically, if you were to look at a pale horse, when you look at a pale horse, pale is the color of death. Because once you die, you turn pale. Even if a black person dies, he turns pale. Look at a fucking zombie movie. Why do they always make the black dude look pale when he comes back from the dead? Yeah, exactly. And then what horse represents power. So basically, you still having the power to bring death. Hence the metaphor here, pale horse. So with that, that's the point of Shalom and the Bar of Ba.